Presented by the Association of Military Banks of America, along with Engility and Wallman Optical.
This domain is really useful for military families. And you and I were talking about, back in the day, trying to send emails home from a deployed location and what that meant and so on. But you also agree that those communications of military families who have peculiar situations that might actually make them more vulnerable than the average American family, those communications are fair game, and I don't mean fair in the way we generally mean fair, but there will be people going after them. So one, how dangerous is it, and what ought you to do?
Well, I'm paranoid, but that's okay. When I thought about this presentation that we're going to do here today, one of the things I kept thinking about is what's unique to military families is the stress of being apart all the time. And obviously there's a lot more stress because you're in theaters of war. So two things need to happen. One, you want to have as much communication as you can if you're a forward deployed soldier, man or woman, back with the family. And that communication, you want it to be as safe as it can be. Second thing you want, though, is the ability, if you're remote parenting, you feel such a sense of loss of control as to the safety of perhaps your children or your spouse. And you may want to be able to do some monitoring there. So one of the things I prepped was, how do you securely communicate, or at least do your best? And then how can you do remote parenting outside of that communication? And then that's, there's a fine line between really, really spying on your kids, because there's never been a better time to spy on your kids than right now. And what are they doing as we sit here? And versus how much you trust them. But remember, when you're forward deployed, or you're in another theater, you don't get the nonverbal communication and daily interactions with your children. And I think that's got to be an unbelievable amount of stress and strain. So you want me to go into this?
Yeah, so how do you do it?
I know you know the answer. Yeah. On the secure communications, I just feel, having looked at them, and we're always trying to tap communications, and we've seen how bad guys surreptitiously communicate on the internet, so we can borrow from that. I truly believe Skype is a very secure mode of communication for the forward deployed soldier. I just do. You get the video. It's very hard to untangle Skype video and Skype chat. It just is. It's an encrypted communication. It does get stored somewhere, though. But it's a little bit better than email, because email just bounces around a bunch of servers, but at least they have the .mil accounts, and I still believe if the military is providing a means to communicate, use it, because the military will think of the ways to do that and to do it securely and safely. So if the military is telling you to do something, do it. But as I've observed in the private sector, Skype is still just a good way to do it. Sit on an iPad, chat with your family on Skype. Down here, how the parent, one of the things I did before this presentation was, I probably shouldn't have, but I did, but my kids are too young to surf, I think. And, but I looked at what you can control at the wireless access points nowadays, and it's remarkable. What I mean by that is most of you have a wireless environment at home. So let's talk about that. Don't be afraid of the administrative interface into that wireless access point to configure it. What I mean is you can be a forward deployed soldier, and you can pick selected sites, selected strings, and if anybody in your house goes to those things, you get an email. It's pretty powerful. That means you don't have to log in from 3,000 miles away into your wireless access point, which is not easy to do, quite frankly, and figure out what's going on. But you get an email to you. And you can have it trigger on specific sites as well. So if you have teenagers and they're going out to sites, quite frankly, you can know it all if they're on the wireless access point. That being said, do you want to? So, but these things are unbelievably powerful, and they can firewall. And what I mean by firewall is you can pick what they can do. Can they just browse, or can they go to file sharing? I wrote down some specifics, but if you've got, no question you want to educate your children specifically. If you're going to forward deploy, tell your children, don't. A couple things. Never put your full name out on the internet if you can help it. Quite frankly, you don't want your account information out there. If you're going to do Facebook, you don't have to use your name. I don't have to have a Facebook page, Kevin Mandia at Facebook. I could pick some neat thing like Grape Slurpee and be that guy, and then at least it's not quite my name. Home address is good to keep off of that. I look at senior officers. You don't want your home address on there. You don't want social security number. You don't want your passwords, names of other family members. You may even want to tell other family members that you don't want pictures of your family going online. And I'll tell you something about that, because this is a big challenge with one of the major, I think it was Facebook. The privacy rules, when they change, you may have a picture on your Facebook wall. And if the privacy rules change, that picture can now be used at their will and whims, not yours. And that's amazing, so it's retroactive. So when your kids put pictures online, realize that even when you mark private in some of these social sites, private may not mean that much. It might mean who can view it, but at the same time frame, ownership of that picture may have just transferred to the site you're posting it to. So just a couple of things. And then I'd leave you with a thought. I mean, I could go on forever on this stuff, and I don't want to. But I can tell you the permanence is something you should absolutely tell your spouse and your children, because the permanence of what goes out on the internet is virtually impossible to pull back. It really is. And we're going to learn that with things like WikiLeaks and Snowden. Oh, you can't rein it back in when it goes out to the internet. Your photos, the dialogue, all that stuff can live forever once it goes out there.